Before his name appeared at film festivals, before Hollywood associated him with strange comedies, awkward dialogues, and broken characters, Jeff Baena was simply another kid growing up far from the center of the industry that would one day adopt him and wear him down. Jeffrey Lance Baena was born on June 29, 1977, in Miami, Florida, in an environment that had nothing to do with cinematic glamour. There were no red carpets, no influential parents, no childhood marked by film sets. His world was far from Los Angeles, far from New York, far from anywhere where cinema seemed like a real-life option. From a young age, he showed a clear inclination toward writing and humor, but not easy humor, not the obvious joke. His was discomfort, absurdity, the silent observation of human relationships. Jeff was not the center of attention. He was the one watching from the side, mentally noting others' contradictions, and his own. During his adolescence, cinema began to occupy a central place, not as a fantasy of fame, but as a language. He was interested in how a story could unsettle, how a dialogue could say more by what it left unsaid than by what it explained. He consumed European films, independent cinema, stories that promised no happy endings. When it came time to choose an academic path, Jeff made a decision that would define his creative identity. He studied film at New York University. It was no small choice. NYU offered not only technical training but total immersion in a culture where cinema was thought of as art, not as a product. In New York, Baena trained surrounded by other aspiring filmmakers, many as ambitious as they were insecure. It was a competitive, silently cruel environment. There, he quickly learned one of the unwritten rules of the creative world. Talent guarantees nothing. Perseverance doesn't either. Sometimes, not even both together are enough. After graduation, like so many others, he moved to Los Angeles. The move wasn't epic. There was no "I came to conquer Hollywood." It was more of a forced landing in a city that devours dreams with a smile. Jeff started from the bottom, very bottom. He worked as a production assistant, performing invisible, low-paid, exhausting tasks. Endless days, weeks without recognition. The kind of work that tests whether love for cinema is real or just a romantic idea. Many leave at this stage. Jeff stayed. One of the key moments of this stage was his work as an assistant to director Robert Zemeckis, a huge name in the industry. From the outside, it seemed like a golden opportunity. From the inside, it was a tough school. Baena observed how a high-level production worked, but also saw the vast distance between those making decisions and those who only executed them. During these years, Jeff always wrote, scripts that no one read, ideas that he couldn't find a place for. His style was not commercial. It didn't follow trends. That made him interesting and dangerous in an industry obsessed with repetition. He was not an author who sold hope. His stories spoke of lost people, failed relationships, existences suspended in a kind of emotional void. They were not easy tales to finance or sell. And yet, he persisted. During this period, Baena began weaving relationships within the independent circuit, not with major studios, but with other creators who shared his twisted vision of the world. People who understood that cinema could also be uncomfortable, weird, even unpleasant. This stage of his life has no headlines, no awards, no interviews, no viral photos, but it is here that the foundation of everything to come was formed. Here the tone, the obsession, the disenchanted gaze that would define his work was forged. Jeff Baena was still not famous, still had no power, still had no recognized voice, but he was already building something fragile, something personal, something that, in time, would take him to the center of an industry that doesn't always know what to do with those who don't fully fit in. And that clash was getting closer. Hollywood is a city full of stories that are never told, scripts that are never filmed, projects that don't go past one meeting, careers that fade before they start. Jeff Baena experienced this side of the industry for years. From the inside, without cameras pointing at him, without applause, without promises fulfilled. In the early 2000s, Baena was still an unknown name. He worked, observed, wrote. His experience as an assistant had given him something valuable, a raw understanding of how the film industry really worked. He knew how decisions were made, who had power, and, above all, who did not. But he also knew something more important. This wasn't the kind of cinema he wanted to make. Jeff didn't dream of big franchises or stories designed to appeal to everyone. His interest was on the margins, in characters who didn't know what to do with their lives, in awkward dialogues, in situations that bordered on absurdity without fully crossing into comedy. This approach took him away from the traditional path but brought him closer to a specific circuit. American independent cinema, a space where there was still room for risk, even if the price was permanent instability. The first turning point came when he began collaborating as a screenwriter on projects that, while not his own, allowed him to enter more serious conversations. His work on I Heart Huckabees, directed by David O. Russell, was key. It wasn't a conventional film, existential philosophy wrapped in absurd comedy. Exactly the kind of terrain where Baena felt comfortable. That experience didn't make him a star, but it did make him someone to watch out for. Jeff Baena was starting to be recognized as that guy who writes weird, smart, uncomfortable stuff. In Hollywood, that can be a blessing or a curse. Over the following years, Baena moved in an ambiguous space. He had contacts but no power, ideas but no budgets, a voice but no sufficiently large megaphone. Many creators get stuck there. It's the most dangerous stage of an artistic career, when you're close enough to keep trying, but too far to feel safe. That's when he made a fundamental decision to direct his own material. For Jeff, writing wasn't enough. He needed to control the tone, the rhythm, the silences. He knew his style could easily be diluted in other hands. Directing was a huge risk, but also the only way to preserve his creative identity. That leap gave birth to Life After Beth, a romantic comedy with zombies. But reducing it to that would be misleading. The film wasn't really about the undead. It was about grief, denial, and the human inability to accept loss. It used the genre as an excuse to talk about uncomfortable emotions. The film marked several things at once. It introduced Baena as a director, confirmed his inclination toward the strange, and connected him with a group of actors who would reappear in his filmography, forming almost a kind of creative family. From there, his name began to circulate more frequently in festivals and specialized circles. He wasn't a mainstream director, but he was recognizable. His cinema didn't aim to please everyone. It aimed to unsettle those willing to look. However, this recognition came with silent pressure. Independent cinema is publicly celebrated but sustained with difficulty. Each project meant starting over, convincing again, justifying why these stories deserve to exist. Jeff Baena advanced, but he did so on unstable ground. Personally, his life was also starting to intertwine with the world he was building. Relationships within the same creative environment, intense bonds. Everything happened in an ecosystem where work and identity dangerously intertwined. For many, this period represents the fulfilled dream. Making films, releasing movies, being recognized for a personal voice. But for others, and Jeff seemed among them, it was also the beginning of constant tension. The struggle between staying true to oneself and surviving in an industry that doesn't reward fragility. Jeff Baena had found his place. But finding a place doesn't always mean finding stability. And as his name began to solidify, expectations grew. The margin for error shrank. The weight of maintaining an artistic identity grew heavier. What came next would be the highest point of his career. The moment where his voice would be clearest, most visible, and perhaps most exposed. The highest point of a career doesn't always coincide with the greatest fame. Sometimes it coincides with something harder to measure: creative clarity. For Jeff Baena, that moment came when he stopped trying to fit in and started definitively to be recognized for not doing so. After Life After Beth, his name no longer circulated as an isolated curiosity. It began to be associated with a specific way of storytelling: emotionally awkward characters, dry humor, dialogues that seemed trivial but hid deep discomfort. Jeff Baena was building a clear auteur identity, and that, in independent cinema, is a valuable currency. The real leap came with Joshi. The film addressed male grief in an unusual way, without big speeches, without evident catharsis, without morals. A group of friends trying to move on after a tragedy, but without knowing how. Pain did not appear as an explosion, but as emptiness. This approach connected with a specific audience, not massive but loyal. Critics began to describe Baena as a sharp observer of contemporary emotional fragility. He didn't make cinema to explain feelings, but to expose them as they are: confused, uncomfortable, sometimes absurd. In parallel, his creative circle consolidated. Actors who trusted him, producers who understood his tone, and at the center of it all, an artistic and personal collaboration that would draw public attention: his relationship with Aubrey Plaza. Plaza not only became his partner, but also a recurring and key presence in his work. Together, they explored complex, ironic, emotionally closed yet deeply human female characters. Their creative chemistry was evident, and audiences began to associate their projects as part of a shared universe. The Little Hours marked another high point, an irreverent medieval comedy, loosely based on Boccaccio's stories, mixing modern language with historical settings. The proposal was risky, could have failed spectacularly, but it worked. The film stood out at festivals, not only for its humor but also for its boldness. Jeff Baena wasn't following trends. He was ignoring them completely, and this creative disobedience began to work in his favor. By that point, his name was already synonymous with weird but smart cinema, a label that opens doors and closes many others. Not everyone wanted to work with someone who didn't promise commercial success, but those who did so with conviction. In 2020, with Horse Girl, Baena touched one of the most personal and dark points in his filmography. The film addressed mental health from a disturbing, ambiguous perspective without easy explanations. It was uncomfortable to watch, and precisely for that reason, powerful. Horse Girl consolidated his place as an auteur. He was no longer just another indie director. He was someone willing to unsettle even his own audience, to not give answers, to leave questions open. But that recognition came at a cost. Baena's cinema demanded constant emotional involvement. His stories were not constructed from a distance. They were born from obsessions, doubts, fears. Sustaining that level of exposure for years is not free. Externally, his career seemed stable. Releases, festivals, interviews, a visible relationship with a recognized actress. From the outside, everything indicated Jeff Baena had found his definitive place. From the inside, the pressure was different. Independent cinema does not offer solid safety nets. Each project means starting over, proving worth again, justifying why your voice matters. And when that voice is built on human fragility, the wear accumulates. Jeff Baena had reached his creative peak. His style was defined, his name respected, his work coherent. But he was also more exposed than ever. Because when everything you do is deeply personal, there is no clear separation between artist and person. Success doesn't always protect. Sometimes, it simply illuminates shadows that previously remained hidden. The film industry is full of stories that end abruptly. Stories where talent, effort, and fame meet invisible limits. Jeff Baena's story, although always wrapped in a creative halo, was no exception. His passing on January 3, 2025, shocked the industry and his followers. For those who knew him closely, the years leading up to his death had been a delicate balance between professional fulfillment and personal challenges. Baena kept creating films that reflected his unique worldview, stories blending awkward humor, broken characters, and dialogues that seemed lifted from real life. However, behind the work, his personal life was marked by a major transition. He and Aubrey Plaza had separated in September 2024 after years together. The relationship with Aubrey Plaza, which for years had been fundamental to his creative universe, also evolved in those final times, with personal ups and downs unknown to anyone outside their inner circle. Though they continued to share affection and respect, their personal paths had diverged. 2025 dawned like any other day. There were no visible signs that it would be the last. Family, friends, colleagues, all continued with their usual routines, trusting life would continue at the same pace as before. Yet the news that would arrive a few hours later changed everything. Jeff Baena had passed away, leaving an impossible-to-ignore void. The independent film world froze. Colleagues, critics, and followers expressed disbelief. He wasn't just a talented director. He was a creator whose voice had marked a style, an approach, a type of storytelling rarely seen. His absence created a deep silence in festivals, social media, and studios. Those who had worked with him remembered his intense gaze, his ability to listen and transform ideas into entire worlds, and above all, how he made every story, even the most absurd or uncomfortable, feel uniquely valuable. For his fans, his death was an emotional shock. The filmmaker who displayed human vulnerability on screen had disappeared, leaving an incomplete, open legacy that would continue to speak for him. Social media filled with tributes, personal stories about how his films had touched lives, raised questions, and prompted reflection. But none of that replaces the physical presence, the ability to keep creating, to keep challenging limits. The industry also began reflecting. Baena was never a mainstream director, but his work showed how a creator can build a coherent, recognizable, and profound universe without following the big studio's rules. His passing sparked debates about the inherent pressure of independent cinema, the invisible sacrifices artists make, and how talent and innovation sometimes come at a personal cost few perceive until it's too late. His work remained. Every film, every script, every awkward dialogue was a testament to his vision. Even though his life ended unexpectedly, Jeff Baena had built his own universe. Imperfect characters, awkward dialogues, situations oscillating between hilarious and devastating. After his death, interest in his work grew organically. Festivals paid tribute to his style, critics revisited his films with fresh eyes, and young filmmakers cited him as a direct influence. Jeff Baena had achieved something few do, transforming the personal into the universal, and the strange into something profoundly human. And so, as his life came to an end, his legacy began to solidify, because there will always be another story of talent, passion, and audacity worth telling.